Welcome. Thank you. This is the ArcGIS Enterprise on AWS. Before we start, just an announcement. We have an event we had it for a few years now for the special interest group. It's right after this session. It's at 11:30 at 27B. It's sponsored by Amazon social event. Come to hear other users' story, how they deploy on Amazon, and we'll have Amazon people there as well. There's free lunch by Amazon, so come and have fun. Before we get started, let's just have a quick survey. By the way, first, my name is Cherry. I work on ArcGIS Enterprise team, and I focus on Amazon services. And let's see, who you are. First, what do you consider your role in your organization? Raise your hand if you think you are administrator or you do administrator's work. Thank you. How about your GIS people? I'm focused on GIS work. Okay. How about your multiple roles? You need to, okay. Good. That's kind of me too, actually. Are you already a cloud user? Are you on Amazon? Azure? Google? Okay. Any other cloud? Okay. Thank you. Are you already running Esri deployment on Amazon? Good. Thank you. Do you consider yourself knowledgeable of Amazon? No. Thank you. Good. And hopefully this session, we have a mix of audience. I hope this session help everybody here. In this session, first we'll talk about what is ArcGIS Enterprise on Amazon. We got a lot of questions, what are you doing on Amazon? Are you provide the same software on Amazon? Are any other tools that are also working on Amazon? So I'm just take some time, take a step back, see what we offer on Amazon, what are we going to cover in this session. And then we'll focus on what we really offer, the deployment tools, some Amazon specific features, and when you have a deployment, how you upgrade, which I know a lot of people is really interested in. And at the end, we will have a case study. We have all these tools, all these things developed. Now I have a real case, and how do I do it in that case study? The case study is really coming from a user that I'm going to present it, generally what happened with his deployment. So first, let's take a look, what are we talking about here, right? Just for the easy to understand, for ArcGIS Enterprise, I separate it into two parts. One is the deployment, how you deploy ArcGIS Enterprise on your environment, whether cloud, different cloud, or on-premise. And then another part is the GIS workflows. You do your GIS work, your maps, your applications, your mobiles, and also some operations, right? Some, for example, you need to update a license. This kind of work after your deployment, what you need to do. For the deployment, how you deploy your ArcGIS Enterprise, these are all the tools that are provided by Esri. We have from the most left for all the setups until the automation tools, different like Chef and PowerShell. And for the GIS workflows, we have tools for the different GIS workflows, and also have some tools help you to do system operation as well. So that's how we see how about ArcGIS Enterprise. And let's first take a look at the deployment tools, right? We have wizard-driven products for like a different setups, portal setups, server setup, web data setups. And then we also have you already heard that Enterprise Builder. And we also have some tooling for some special environment, like for Amazon and Azure. And on the most right, we have the automation tools for Chef and DSC. And I put a mask on the setups. You probably heard by now that if you are still running the setups, doing the install, you probably not do it right. You need to use our tooling, use all these other rest of the tools. And what are these deployment tools do, right? They deploy ArcGIS Enterprise. These are coming from our documentation. This is a whole ArcGIS Enterprise, have all these components and all these different architectures, different server roles, federated with a base enterprise. So all these deployment tools help you to deploy this architecture. ArcGIS Enterprise is a very powerful system, and we realize that the powerful system is also not easy to deploy. So we develop these tools to help you to deploy this architecture. For the deployment tools provided by Amazon, right? From the left, wizard-driven tools, and on the right, Chef PowerShell automation tools. These tools works everywhere. It works on premise and it works in all the cloud providers. When you talk about all these cloud providers, we support them all. You can use those automation tools and enterprise builder to deploy in all these environments. But the special thing about Amazon and Azure is we provide special tooling for this environment. We like you to use our tooling because we already, tuned it. We did a lot of work to it. Using the other development tools, right? You're still doing it from scratch. So if possible, use our tools in this. There are customers that for some reason, for example, the image we provide is not really meet their system requirement. They have to use a different operating system. So in that case, we do have user using like a Chef on Amazon doing their own deployment, not using our image. But that's a very special case. In the most cases, try to use our tool as much as possible because we put a lot of work in it. We try to make your work easier to start with. And of course, in this session, right, we focus on what we provide on Amazon, what deployment tools we provide on Amazon. Then, let's take a look at what we provide for Amazon to get started to deploy on Amazon. I have a quick compare just for you to see what the difference when you deploy on premise. On premise and Amazon, you both need Esri authorization files, which you got from Esri. You probably paid a lot of money for, and then you need a domain for your application. This is required, right, for your ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. It's the same on both environment, and also you need a certificate for your domain. This also required. Next is a little bit different is on premise. You need Esri setups, right? Or you need enterprise builder, or need all these even all these automation tools. You still need Esri setups, which you get from myesri.com. And then you need infrastructure, right? You need machines, you need a network, web server, file server, database. All of these you need to for your enterprise to work. For Amazon, though, you only need an Amazon account because we already have other tooling prepared for you. When you just need an Amazon account to start with. And then let's take a look at it. Now you started a deployment, and on premise, you need some knowledge about the infrastructure, where your web server is, how your file server work, how your network work, and on Amazon, you need some knowledge about Amazon, right? We always say we try to develop tools to make you start as quickly as possible. Still, in the long run, you are the one maintaining the system. We always recommend user you do have some knowledge about Amazon, not just for the deployment, also more importantly, later on, you operate on these systems. And again, on premise, you need the setups or automation tools to do on all your machines. Well, on Amazon, what we provide an image that already have our software bits on it. And we will talk about later on, we have a command line tool, which is new at 10.6, help you to deploy the whole architecture, all those architecture you just saw earlier. And then we have the Esri CloudFormation templates. That CloudFormation is a native technology to Amazon, and we developed some sample templates to help to deploy our architectures. Now let's take a look at all these tools we say, right? First, the AMIs. We have two AMIs at 10.6 and 10.6.1, which will be public next week. One is on Windows with SQL Server, and one is Ubuntu with Windows 2016 and Ubuntu 16.04. And they are all in the Amazon marketplace. They are public. As long as you have an Amazon account, you have access to these armies, to these images. So as long as you have Amazon account, anyone actually have access to our software bits. And then the image is also available in the GovCloud, also through the public marketplace. So it's there as well. Next, let's the CloudFormation templates, right? On the left, that's our documentation. These CloudFormation templates to deploy all these different architectures, different architecture roles, and this is a base enterprise deployment. This CloudFormation template is a native technology in Amazon. It's they have a bunch of other samples for different deployment you can use, and we provide all these sample templates to deploy our stuff. And because CloudFormation template is native Amazon technology, and then you can use Amazon's SDK to do, to work with CloudFormation template. Amazon has pretty much all the SDK that you can think of out there, like all of different ones that you can use. And for us, we provided some sample SDK script for PowerShell and for Python. You can use this PowerShell Python to schedule the task, to run command line, to call these CloudFormation templates to deploy. These template samples basically actually is what we use in our daily testing, and then we just wrap them up to provide for you to use as well. This is something new that we had at 10.6. Right? This we call it command line tool. The difference of this one is CloudFormation templates, right? The CloudFormation templates, each template deploy one architecture. For example, you only deploy base deployment, and then they deploy server, Federated server, or image server. At 10.6.1, there's the image hosting server, these different roles. The thing about the command line is it is one run to deploy the whole architecture. It can deploy the base enterprise plus the federated servers. It's a whole thing in one run. You just define a JSON file to see, what you want, and then it can one run to deploy the whole architecture. It can also prepare your deployment. When you do your deployment, where you mentioned you need Esri license file, you need certificates, you need to have your environment variable ready, your certificate need to be in the Amazon to be ready, so they can do that work as well. And before we do a demo of this command line, just quickly, we have the CloudFormation template, and then we also have the command line, Cloud Builder command line, and then when to use what. What's the difference of these two? The Cloud Builder, right? It's a one run. It's just one run to do the whole deployment. The CloudFormation template, though, it doesn't do the one run, but it's highly customizable. All our templates out there, it's like a building block for you. You can modify it to the way you want. From the simplest, a lot of our customers do modify. The simplest is, for example, we have a default for the instance type. You change the default instance type for your own, so you don't have to change it every time. Something simple like that. And some people, added added Lambda Function, which are all powerful users, but it's very highly customizable. You take it, change it any way you want. So, for simplicity, if you want to, just have a quick run, use Cloud Builder. It is really make the work simple. But if you are a very powerful user, right, you really do a lot of customization, then CloudFormation template is what you want to go with. Next, this new command line tool, let's do a demo, how it works. I hope you can see it clearly. This is the Cloud Builder install. It's a very simple, very light setup. It's really installed very quickly. And then they will have the help, take you to the help documentation. And right after the install, it takes you where the software is installed. under this command, this folder, you see there's a configuration folder. Let's make it easier to see. Under the configuration folder, there are samples, sample JSON files for create, for different deployment. You can pick one to start with, and then we also have the prep, the one I mentioned, the prep samples. We'll come back, take a look at detail at it later. And then there's other folders like the logs folder, of course, the recording, and output folder. You'll see in a little bit, we'll see output is your deployment. What's the output of your deployment? Next, let's take a look at this. Use the complete JSON file. These ones basically have all the architectures that you can deploy with. So just make it bigger, easier. Okay, you just some basic variables you want to define, like your name, the deployment name. The deployment name, we use it to tag all the resources created in Amazon, and then the version, the platform. And this is credentials, could use your Amazon profile as well. And then all these default values, what you want to define for your deployment. And then you can do the base deployment, GeoAnalytics server, raster analytics, federated server, geo event. And for 10.6.1, there's a image hosting server as well. This is the 10.6 finals sample. And next, let's go to. I had a sample prepared for this demo. Let's take a look what I wanted to deploy in this demo. I want to deploy it on Linux, and then using my profile, and I want with all these default values, I use a cloud store. Basically, I want to use a cloud storage for my config store. And then I want to do a base deployment. I also want to do a server to be federated with this base deployment. And let's just run it. We can, just turn on open the command line. And as I mentioned, just one command to do this whole deployment. Let's make it bigger. Okay. We just need to run this doing create, and then using the JSON file that we just see. Okay, that's all. Now you just need to wait and see the result. While it is going, right, let's take a look at our document. We do the create is what we just did in this demo. Under the document of the create, there's all different these sample JSON files, what they are for. What these sample JSON, what deployment they are for. And then also under these parameters, it will show you all the parameters you can define and what we are expecting for that parameter. There is also this prep command. It will tell you what this prep command is really doing. What is it's like a one-time task. What can you do with this prep command? And of course, there's delete. You just delete a deployment. Let's take a quick look at this prep sample. Let's look at this all the prep work you can do. With the prep work, right? You can create a network with basically create a VPC if you need one, and also all these authorization files and the certificates help you to import to Amazon S3 or import to Amazon Certificate Manager that all your deployment can use, later on. Now let's take a look at our deployment. It's going, and then this is the CloudFormation actually is creating in the Amazon console. The one is complete, one is still going. And then while it's going, you can use Amazon CloudWatch to see how it is, where the deployments are. And use our deployment name. You can see all the logging created for this deployment. And under this chevron log files, you can see exactly where it is right now. Actually, right now, I think it is at configure web adapter for portal. You can see the progress in this log file. See, that's exactly what it is going on right now. Now let's go back to this deployment and okay. This is how it looks like when it's done. This is the output of what is deployment generated. This is the federated server, and that's the portal. Let's take a look at what we created here. This is a deployment. You see this is your base enterprise and with your ArcGIS enterprise deployment. Let's log in the username password defined in that JSON file. And then let's take a look at our servers. See, there are two servers. One is hosting server, one is a federated server, and is set as a federated hosting server. And they are both validated, so you are ready to do your GIS work. And let's take a look at what the output folder is that we mentioned earlier. This is your deployment. So you see what exactly was the output of this deployment when you deployed. So this is a good record of what you did. And the JSON file that we used to deploy, that's your best document to record what you did earlier, what variable you did. And you can use that to create new ones again and again. And that's jigs of this new command line tool. Okay, next, let's take a look at the GIS workflows then. What we have special in that area. As we mentioned earlier, right, there are a lot of GIS workflows. WebGIS DR, your Python API, your maps, your geoprocessing tasks. All of those is the same on-premise, on Amazon, everywhere, because that's our software, right? They just work the same across board. And there's some also specific cloud features, for example, we use a cloud storage with some operations, how you may want to stop and start. Some specific things about these cloud features, that's what we'll focus, that we provide some specific tooling and feature there as well. For the cloud storage, currently this is the cloud provider we support. The Alibaba Cloud and the Huawei Cloud, they are new at 10.6.1. We support using their cloud storage to do the caching. And Amazon Azure, we've been supporting them for a while. For Amazon, what we supported here, we support using S3 for portal content, very highly available. And then we also, we allow you to register S3 bucket in the server manager. This is you can use it for caching. Manage cache as well. At 10.5.1, we used to only support consume caching. Now we support manage caching, create cache as well. You can create cache and directly load to Amazon. It's a very native implementation and very helpful. That's one of the most popular requirements we get from user. Because these storage, right, they are not just highly available, they are also highly scalable. For some caching, you might not even have that big disk on premise. And for the performance, the caching using S3, in our performance testing, is very similar to ArcGIS Online. If you are happy with ArcGIS Online's performance, you're probably okay using this for your caching as well. And then you can also use it for geoanalytics and raster analytics input. And for the ArcGIS special temporal big data store, backups can back up there as well. And the WebGIS DR, it can back up your WebGIS DR content to S3. And for ArcGIS config store, we use DynamoDB and S3. And another thing is new is, now we support user-defined S3 storage. What we mean by that, right? There are some use cases. In that case, is some user have a private cloud, secure environment, that silver cloud, that three-letter agent cloud. Those S3 can only accessible by them. The URL only they know what it is. In that case, we support them to define this URL, and then you can use that for all of these functions as well. And we also have some use case that some cloud claim they are S3 compatible, right? And in those cloud, you can also define in this way to support it through these functions, especially caching. This is new, and if you have something like that, you can give it a try as well. Some other things, some system tasks, why do we want to do on Amazon? One of it is a stop and start. This is probably not that popular on premise, right? You have a machine running, you pretty much never turn it off. It's always running in your office. But in the cloud, it's different, right? You run every minute, you pay Amazon. When you don't really need it, you probably want to stop them. Like you are doing testing, you are going back home. By that time, you want to stop it, and next day you come in, you want to start it. Or, in the hurricane season, you have big deployment, but after that season, you want to stop them. Because every minute, I think they charge by hour, and then they're down to the minute now. They charge you by running these resources. And another thing is upgrade, right? Upgrade is a big task everywhere across board. In the cloud, because we provide a deployment tool to do some special deployment, so in the upgrade, there's something special there as well. Let's take a look at the stop start first. This is coming with the CloudFormation deployment. This is we have the Lambda functions that can stop across board. All your machines, your resources in the portal server, data store, or federated server, and it stop all of them. And then when you click on the start, it start all of them. You can run these Lambda functions in Amazon console, and it calls test actually, usually because to them, they consider when you manually run it as a test. It usually is a triggered event, right? It's a scheduled task, but just one time, you can run it from Amazon console as well. Another thing we did is through this run command tool Amazon provide, that you can remotely run the command. In the Amazon console, you can define which machine and want to run what command. This is, you can update a license. You can apply Esri patches. Any other command you can remotely run. And this is available at Windows since 10.5, and the 10.6 starting is available at Ubuntu as well. Let's talk about some about the upgrade. First, just generally, not even on Amazon, right? Make a backup. Really make a backup before you upgrade. Using the WebGIS DR tool, make a backup. And then you want to practice. You see this, we created this whole stack. Upgrade is a major task. And try to do this good practice before you run upgrade. And upgrade to 10.6.1, okay, should be live next week. We have documentation how you run upgrade. You can just follow our documentation. Actually, even though we have a documentation, it has quite a lot of steps. Something I want to emphasize here, you want to keep in mind what's so special about this upgrade on Amazon. Let's take a look at the base enterprise first. The base enterprise, right, have a standalone and have a high availability. For the standalone, actually, it's fairly simple. You log on to the machine. Of course, you need a new setup, a new license, those things you still need it. But when you log on to the machine, we have how do I say, is a command, a chef command, helps you to upgrade all the components. All you need to do is in the documentation, you can see that you just define which version you want to upgrade to, which is 10.6.1, and where's your new license file, where's your setup. And then that's how we can upgrade it. For the highly available portal, it's a little bit tricky. Because highly available portal, what we set up in Amazon is 2 machines, right? Has portal server data store, everything on one machine. and the portal server data store on other machine. It's primary and standby. And then this order coming matters. So before you do that, you make sure portal and the data stores primary on one machine, standby on one machine, and then you follow the documentation, run on standby first, and then primary. I'm just pointing out here that you can see in the documentation, but just keep this in mind, why the documentation is that way. And for the ArcGIS server stack, one thing is tricky is the, ArcGIS server stack is in the auto-scaling group. If you know Amazon, right, this auto-scaling group ensure you have enough instance you want. In the auto-scaling group, not only you just upgrade the machines in that auto-scaling group, you also need to update auto-scaling group to make sure the new machines bring up by the auto-scaling group is using the new version of AMI. We have a CloudFormation template help you to update your existing CloudFormation stack. That's the tricky part. That's for server. Similarly, for spatial big data store, if some of you use it, that's also the tricky part, is this auto-scaling group. Make sure the new machines coming up bring the new auto-scaling group. And also, one thing about the server is the computer unit that you lose a machine, coming machine is no big deal. But spatial temporal data store, it is a big deal. This rebalance, reshard is very expensive. So in that documentation, again, it tells you first move these machines, existing machines, outside auto-scaling group. After upgrade, you move them back and update auto-scaling group. So these are the very special Amazon implementations. So follow the documentation and let us know if you have questions. This orders really matters. Okay, we talk a lot about these tools, these implementations. Now let's see a case study. We have a user. What he wants to do is in Amazon, he needs to deploy ArcGIS Enterprise on Amazon. He needs a base enterprise, and then he needs all of these server rows. And he also wants to use ArcGIS Monitor to monitor his system. And he knows that he's going to update his license, and he needs to prepare for the future upgrades. So this is the checklist he needs to do, right? He needs to implement all of these. This is his architecture. Well, it will come up again because the checklist will continue next again. He needs a base enterprise deployment. He's okay with one machine-based deployment, but he needs a spatial temporal data store. He has 3 spatial temporal data store in the auto-scaling group. And then for the on the left, the ArcGIS server side, this is his implementation. It crosses the machines across 2 different availability zones, 2 different subnets. And then for geo event, he needs one machine to pump in data. And for the geo analytics, right, that's similar from ArcGIS server. They are in the auto-scaling group in case he's scaling up. And similarly, he also needs an image side that it also needs in the auto-scaling group. It will be scaling up. And then he need to decide what operating system he need to use. What he did was he compared the price, right? Use Windows or Ubuntu. You can see actually for the M5 extra large, the Windows not quite, but almost double the Ubuntu's price. And for like file server, you probably don't need that good machines, but even for file server for this M4 extra large, is almost double the size of Ubuntu. So he decided to go with Ubuntu. So the architecture is check. That's done. The next task is deployment. The deployment, he used this CloudFormation template, a command line tool that we provided. To use this command line tool, you can download it from Esri. myesri.com is next week 10.6.1 will be available. And then to get the deployment ready, right? He need to first get the Esri license and the certificate license, import them to Amazon to get them ready. And the command line tool, the ArcGIS Cloud Builder command line tool, can do the prep work, can help with that. And then you also need, for the base enterprise deployment, you need an elastic IP to be mapped with your domain name for a base enterprise deployment. And then the server, right, there's a multi-machine deployment. It needs a load balancer in front. So you need to create a load balancer. That load balancer will have the certificate that we just loaded up there in the certificate manager. And then you need to update your domain name again, mapping to this load balancer. For the VPC, right, a lot of your account already have a default VPC from Amazon. That one works just fine. But a lot of networks, you want to separate our deployment. So he created a new VPC for his different deployment. And the Cloud Builder command line prep can help with that as well. So after getting all that ready, you can see that these certificates are uploaded to the deployment bucket in Amazon. And the elastic IP is created and allocated. And the load balancer is created and ready. This is a certificate manager, that's imported to Amazon for your new certificate. And the VPC, we created, using the Cloud Builder command line, created a VPC that's, this is the VPC, the subnets, the route table, and the internet gateway. Basically, you're using the command line tool to create this VPC, getting ready for you to do your deployment. And then, as earlier we mentioned, right, you use this JSON file to define his deployment. For the top, the deployment name that tagged all these CloudFormation templates and other resources created on Amazon as well. And this is your credentials. And these are the defined what we were asking in that environment variables, your VPC, your key pair, your S3 bucket, and the certificate manager's name. And this is defined what I want, in the deployment, right? You need a base enterprise deployment. We need a server, a Geo event, Geo analytics, raster analytics. All of these server roles, different server roles with base enterprise, is going to be created using this command line, just one run to create the whole thing, as we demoed earlier. This is a deployment. After you finish, this is all the CloudFormation stack it created. And then in your base enterprise, you see all of these servers created and federated. Your deployment just ready to go. And then let's take a look at the Amazon console, right? These are all the instances created for this deployment, have that name tag to it. So our deployment's ready, checked again. And next, the environment availability. Basically, I don't want it to be run all the time, so I schedule the task to stop and start. What do I use? Use that Lambda function created by Esri's deployment. And so that is done. Next, I want to use ArcGIS monitor. I just put it here with ArcGIS monitor. This is not special for Amazon deployment. Some of you might went to the session about that already. This is just an ArcGIS monitor created by Esri, a tool that not only just monitor your system, but also monitor the service performance. These are some screenshots for ArcGIS monitor. This is working across board. That's not Amazon specifically. And then this is a monitor can give you give a see how your system is doing. Then the system monitor is good. And then I need to update the license. As we mentioned earlier, right, we can use Amazon Esri's run command to do this update license. In that Amazon console, the run shell script, because it's on Ubuntu, on Windows it's a run PowerShell, you can do that. And then define which machine you want it to be run. You define a machine or a bunch of machines, or you define whichever machine you want it to run. And then you just in the Amazon console, in that console, you run this command, you download your new license file to the machine and run authorize. That's how I update it without even logging into the machine, without bothering this machine. Let's check next. I need a disaster recovery site. How do I do that? you want to set up an identical deployment, probably in a different region, as your backup deployment. This is what we mentioned earlier. We deployed architecture. I deployed it in the U.S. East Ohio region. Using the same JSON file, just change some parameters like the VPC or subnet, because in different regions they have different ID. But you use that same JSON file, create an identical one in Oregon. Because it defines the same architecture, you have the same architecture define a different region. And then you use WebGIS DR tool to export and import. So you have a totally redundancy in a different region. And then you have the working on this file. When you want to test if it is correct, you just because they have the same domain, right? One trick is you could do is on your laptop where you are testing this new deployment, if it's working, you can update your host file to use that IP mapping to this domain name. That's one thing to do. That's how usually we do. But there's other more official way you can separate the network. But one trick thing is just from the machine you are working on, you can just update the host file. Then you can test this the backup deployment. And then when your primary deployment is done, you can just update your domain to DNS domain mapping to the new deployment. Then you have your disaster recovery site to take over. Just one thing real quick is, this WebGIS DR tool, right? It constantly can create a base backup and then restore. It can also create incremental. So every time make the backup restore lighter. But after a while, you might create another base again. But this WebGIS DR tool is not a special tool in Amazon. It's everywhere in deployment. But one thing special here is, you could, the backup could be in the cloud, right, in the S3 bucket. And then what about upgrade? What can we do about upgrade? This is the disaster recovery site we just saw, right? You can also use this backup to do the upgrade. You have your site running, and then you just upgrade using the new release on your backup deployment. And working on the upgrade. And then when you're really ready, when you are happy, you can switch the DNS name. Then you have a new upgraded release. One thing to keep in mind though, right? You back up and restore, backup, export, import. When you started to run the upgrade, that basically your last import is. Anything happened after that import on your primary site is going to be lost because that data didn't come in. Same thing with disaster recovery. It can recover to your last import data. That's just something, before you run upgrade, that's your last recovery point. And that's where your data is going to be. Anything happen after that, it won't be there. Okay, with that, his deployment was successful. This is a case that actually is our professional service. They are doing it for a customer's project. That this is what the project plan. The real plan, of course, is a lot more details, a lot more GIS tasks. That's, really not quite relevant because after you have your system deployed, it just works any other systems. So I skipped that part. But generally, this is how their plan got executed. Well, with that, that's our presentation. And, again, we have this special interest group. We have users share about their stories. We'd like to hear your story as well. Let us know your success story or even not that successful story, your experience, right? For for the next year's special interest group, maybe you can present your case as well, or maybe even like I present a case study today, we can present maybe your case as well. Just like your peers to know your experience on Amazon. And then, like always, take our survey, and so we know what we can improve for the next year for the future presentation. And with that, we'll take some questions. Have any questions? Go ahead.
I have two questions. One is with for the architecture. So you described we can use S3 for the border content, and for server configuration we can use DynamoDB. So can we use EFS for the server configuration rather than Dynamo?
Okay. The question is, for the highly available storage in the cloud, we mentioned S3, we mentioned the DynamoDB, but we didn't say anything about EFS, right? EFS right now is only available on Linux. We just did a beta for Amazon that they are doing the Windows beta as well. In our performance testing, actually, we recommend EFS because, when we did the testing, when it has a config store, actually it really affected the performance of ArcGIS server, especially like publishing. If you have a site that don't publish very often, that might be okay, but if you publish, that performance really, really come down. And another thing is we tested with the caching. In the caching, right, it's okay for caching, but it's like 2 times slower than when you use S3. And then it's way more expensive than S3. So we figure, it doesn't really give us or user any benefit when you use EFS. This is what's happening on Ubuntu. And then when we participated in their Windows beta, it's very similar. It's just we haven't really found a good use case for it. But some user for geoanalytics specifically, they have real large data, and then they like the convenience that is like a drive to your machine, very easy to use, very transparent, but they don't really like S3. In that case, it's okay if you want to use like a data input. It's really good for something that's large data, you just read. That's something you kind of consider as EFS. But for a lot of GS tasks, right, we do a lot of read and write. It's not just read, and it's small bits read and write. In that case, we find EFS is not quite a good fit. So we didn't really mention any of it because we haven't really seen a good use case for it. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of the confirmation stuff that you had in JSON, does it also support Ansible?
The question is, we use JSON, we use Chef, right? Do we support Ansible? Not right now. We start with Chef, which is available at the beginning, and then we just keep using it. Ansible, actually the other format of it is not JSON. I forgot what it is. We look at it, but we might if we have enough demand. But right now, especially CloudFormation is even wrapped up, right? You don't really in your face. So what's underlying happening? We haven't had enough demand to do that. Yeah. Go ahead.
For a multiple machine deployment, can that be done either through command line interface or CloudFormation?
The question is, for the multi-machine deployment, should I use CloudFormation or should I use a command line cloud builder? The answer is, what you define a multi-machine. For ArcGIS server, for example, it could be multiple machine. In that case, CloudFormation can just do it. And then command line, you probably notice, actually what command line does is behind the scene is calling these CloudFormation templates. It's really still doing the CloudFormation templates. But there are some extra steps, like you need to federate them, you need to map the domain, command line to do that. So you can, in one run, you can start several CloudFormation templates to put them all together. That's what command line is for. So underlying is still CloudFormation. So if you have multiple roles, like you have base enterprise, you have raster analytics, you have geoanalytics, geo-event, then command line would be a good choice.
And you mentioned one of the slides that the command line interface is easier and that the CloudFormation is for more highly customized deployments.
Right.
So what are the limitations where you would want to use CloudFormation template instead?
Command line, okay. That's a good question. The command, CloudFormation template, right, is right there. You can modify whichever way you want. So it's very customizable. In command line Cloud Builder, right, we have a variable set a template that's to support you for customized support template. So we do support some customization there, but you can't make it too much different. Some small change, for example, you change the instance type. You change your Army ID even, that's okay, because a lot of organizations, you take our Army, you put on your security monitor, you put on your other thing required by your organization, that's okay. But if you add some very complicated, for example, you put a Lambda function there, you put another variable to take a script to, then command line tool probably couldn't handle it. Just don't modify the body part, but the variable part, if you change in the CloudFormation template, then it's okay. Yeah. Have any other? Go ahead.
We put some Pro desktop instances, and Pro seems really, really chatty back to the server. With us having an Amazon Cloud server, we've started to run into bandwidth issues with, becoming incredibly slow trying to work with Pro on desktop. Is there any kind of tuning or like local caching plans or anything that can help with that?
Okay, the question is, if I want to run ArcGIS Pro with ArcGIS Enterprise, what would be the recommendation how I should do, right? Your observation is really right. When your desktop or just Pro in your office, your deployment in the cloud, that's almost unusable, especially when you use this desktop to manage the geodatabase in the cloud. That's just not going to work. And then for the Pro part, actually the Pro, the good part is about this, what do they call that? The streaming, actually in the next session, right, we have a customer is probably going to show use AppStream for Pro, but that's for the Pro fancy sessions. And then the way to use that is to use Amazon Workspace. Or use Amazon Workspace instance, not a regular instance. Even though some regular instances, they say they have GDU, whatever, but still use the Workspace with GDU. Did I say it right? No. GPU, yeah, to enable the Amazon Workspace instance. Yeah.
It's more expensive to have to also add that workspace on top of having your desktop licenses and desktops and stuff. Is there any kind of plan to help with some of that?
The desktop license, that's actually not just not perform well, right? Also, there's a problem that actually when you reboot that instance, even the machine name didn't change, even the IP didn't change, sometimes the MAC address changed, you might lose that license actually. When that happens, you probably need your account manager to give you another license, return this existing license. And same with the license manager. What we are thinking to do for that is to use name user license, use ArcGIS Online name user license. Then it will eliminate this problem. That's been on the agenda for a while, but that's on the work list for the Pro team. The queuing of that is very important, and come to the session to see the user who's doing that work. Yeah. Any other questions?
But here your backup and restore,
Uh-huh.
it requires public URL to be the same.
Yes.
So in the example, can you just
Okay. Oh.
how to do it?
Okay. The question was, in the this slides, when we make the flip, this backup deployment must have the same domain as your primary. Only in that case, WebGIS DR can work. At least the price. You maybe have some future plan, but right now that's the way it is. So how you say you have the same domain name. When I hit the URL in my laptop, it goes to that one, not go to this one, right? How do I make that work? That's what I was saying, there are some way to do that. A more official way, right? Real official way is you separate the network. And this machine is only on this network. You have two domain, traffic manager. The traffic manager in this network traffic you to this. That's requires some IT setup. But in my testing, right, I don't have that. I need to quickly do. What I do is just on this machine I'm using, like on this machine I'm managing this, you open your host file, do a mapping right there. And then by default, I go to that host first. So that's how I'm going to do my testing to make sure this one works. And then when the traffic manager will make the flip, will just work. Yeah.
So I'm looking at implementing sort of a mixed cloud enterprise and then desktop users, primarily because of the expense of GPU workspaces on Amazon. And it sounds like there are some unique problems that I haven't heard about before. Do you have any recommendations for a good way to have desktop users and a enterprise AWS cloud as far as licensing? Should I stick with, for now, ArcGIS desktop or ArcMap? Or use ArcMap in the cloud for workspaces because they don't require GPUs?
The question is, I want to use the desktop and the enterprise. How should I? First of all, like the other lady mentioned, you don't want it desktop on premise and a deployment in the cloud. That's just this traffic is going to make it not going to work. And then when you put ArcGIS Pro or ArcGIS Desktop in, if you only want to manage your enterprise, ArcGIS Enterprise, only want to manage geodatabase, you only load the data, desktop is enough. The traditional desktop ArcMap is enough. ArcGIS Pro, what it is really good for is for these new, fancy, real nice applications. That's the GPU. The GPU in Amazon, actually, that's one thing they really trying to push. They really push app streaming, and then because GPU is expensive, very expensive. When you purchase on-premise, right, and then you spend $50,000 in a year, you're ready to upgrade. But on Amazon, right, what they say is they already have this in place. You pay as you go. So it's makes more sense in that way in the Amazon. That's what they try to position it. So that's what Amazon's really interested in for our user to do. For that pricing part, I know GPU is very important, expensive in Amazon as well. But relatively, if you purchase the whole thing on premise, I guess if you update very often, that makes more sense to do it in the cloud. You have some problems using?
The price point difference in terms of GPU and non-GPU workspace instances is like a factor of 10.
Yeah.
And we're inclined to stick with ArcMap because
GPU is really just for that part of the function. When you manage ArcGIS server, you manage you manage geodatabase, you don't need that part of the function. So it really depends what you want to do. When you use Pro, when they say GPU is really for those fancy apps, it's really nice, but depends what you want to do there. Yeah. GPU on premise is also very expensive. Yeah. You come to talk to those Amazon guys, tell them it's too expensive. Any other questions? Or? Well, thank you, and then come to our SIG and let us know your story. Thank you.